Hello, everyone, and good morning. Happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. We're here for a little mid-week motivation, and hopefully we'll see a nice sunrise. We are at Disney's Wilderness Lodge, and this is one of my favorite resorts here on Disney property. It is absolutely gorgeous. We're right outside of Geyser Point, just right over there. It's a little bar area that serves amazing food and drinks, and this is the view that you get. If you hang out here at night, you can see Magic Kingdom fireworks off in the distance over there, and I just absolutely love the views from this resort. I apologize for not being available on Monday. Usually we do a Monday morning live stream at 6:30 in the morning, but unfortunately I had to work. I was called in. I work at my favorite gym in the entire planet, so I was working on Monday morning, so unfortunately we could not live stream, but here we are, midweek motivation. Hey, Captain Kirk, thanks for being here. Yeah, it is an amazing resort. Love the lobby. It's absolutely stunning. But we're here and we're gonna make the most of this stream because unfortunately I do not have the gimbal. My boyfriend Pete is on a cruise, or he's getting on the cruise right now. He had an amazing opportunity with this company that's sponsoring his channel, Adventures by Carney. So I think he took the gimbal with him. So I'm doing my very best to hold the phone without shaking it too much. So we might be a little bit stationary this stream. We'll walk a little bit, but yeah, I'm trying my best to just hold the phone so you guys are not too shaky. But thank you so much for being here. I want to show you this view because it's absolutely stunning. And I want to start the stream like I start every live stream. I want to acknowledge you for being here. I really appreciate and acknowledge you for taking the time out of your day, out of your morning, to just set some time aside for you and to expand your mind and maybe come away with some knowledge about a topic that maybe you want to explore more about. I always like to say I'm not an expert in anything that I'm talking about. It's just I'm sharing my experiences and my learnings with you. So if you can take something positive away or something new that you've learned, that's amazing. And I always say, take what resonates with you and leave the rest. So thank you so much for being here. Hey, Lady Kirk, good morning. Yes, it is a beautiful morning. It's a little bit windy, a little bit like muggy and humid, but it's, like I say, a nice Florida hug. We are going to talk about the book that I'm currently reading, which is The Body Keeps Score by Bessel Kolk. I hope I'm saying his name right. But I do want to just briefly talk about how this is, good morning, Lynette. This is a safe space. I want people to feel like they can actively participate in the chat, ask questions, and not have fear of any judgment, because this is a judgment-free zone. And no matter what side of the bed you woke up on this morning, I don't want to get political in my streams or on my channel at all, but I just want to kind of acknowledge where we are right now. I totally did not realize when I rescheduled the stream that it would be the morning after the election. But I do want to just take a minute and say, regardless of where you were with the vote, it's important to understand that there are people in your life that might be really happy about the vote, and there might be some people that are a little upset about it. And it goes back to things that I've spoken about on the stream before. It's that the way that you respond to the situation, right? Good morning, Peaches. It's the way that you're responding to it, whether you're happy or upset about the results of the election, right? We need to be, how do I put this? you're responsible for you, right? And if you went out and you voted, you did all that you could, right? Whether it turned out the way you wanted it to or not, now you have a personal responsibility to carry out the way that you are going to conduct yourself through this next year and the next 4 years, right? What type of person do you want to be? And if you're someone that's feeling frustrated or upset about the election, instead of combating that or being negative or hateful, let's try and be proactive about our responses instead of reactive. And remember that everybody has a story. Everybody voted the way they did because they have their own personal reasons. So it's more in the understanding of where people are coming from rather than, making that judgment of the person. And that goes for the people that are also happy about the results. How are you going to carry yourself over the next 4 years? And what type of person do you want to be? If you don't want to be placed in a box, right, you want to make sure that you are being intentional with your actions moving forward. And I don't want to dwell on this, but I do want to kind of address it a little bit because for some people this was a tough morning. So there we are. Peaches, yes. Sorry I missed you this past weekend too. I had a lot going on, but we're here. Thanks for being here. I have so many things that I want to talk about on this stream. And again, I am not an expert in this topic of trauma. And I just want to reiterate that to you because I am just going to relay some of the things that resonated with me as I read through this book. Again, it's called The Body Keeps Score by Bessel van der Kolk. I hope I'm saying that correctly. It is a heavy read and I have not finished the book yet, but there's like so many things that I jotted down within the first 150 pages. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. I am just in awe of this beautiful view. So I really don't want to go too far, but we are going to take a little bit of a walk pretty soon. I just want to kind of see if the sky changes and we can get some beautiful views here. So in talking about trauma, this book really focuses on post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, as the main focus. And in the beginning of the book, they talk about imagination and how it gives us the opportunity to envision new possibilities. That's what we do with our imaginations and thinking about in our childhood, right? Why we have our imaginations, what's the purpose of it, and why it's so important to kind of cultivate that. And it's an essential launch pad for making our hopes come true. Usually when we're using our imagination, we're thinking about maybe a future that we want or creating a reality that we want for ourselves. So it's so important to, cultivate that imagination. And what I've learned is people kind of pull back to their past trauma and they suffer from a failure of imagination. So the people that are experiencing like deep trauma, PTSD, their imagination suffers. And they have a loss of mental flexibility. And without imagination, you don't have hope and you don't have like a goal for the future, something that you're working towards. So in understanding where people are coming from with trauma is so important in how you approach them and react to the things that they might be saying or doing. All right, let me see if I really wanted to get on that dock over there, but it's kind of closed off. I think that would be cool to just sit by the water, but I can understand why Disney doesn't want us to go over there. And I wanted to sit on these chairs, but it looks like everything's a little bit wet. So let's see. All right. Like I said, I'm doing my best without a gimbal here, so I just don't want it to be too shaky for you guys. And in reading this book, I also found some more information about trauma and how it changes not only how we think and what we think about, but also our very capacity to think. So trauma is something that obviously is in the mind and it affects your brain in so many ways. They really dive deep in talking about these different MRI results and PET scans and CAT scans and finding out all this research. Again, I'm not an expert, but it's so interesting to see how the brain of people with PTSD, their brains are actually different and they change. And trauma has a fundamental reorganization of the way the mind and the brain manage perceptions and how we kind of view the world. So someone who's been through a traumatic event might experience something later, like a similar event to you, but their interpretation of it, their perception of it, is vastly different than yours. So that's why, again, it comes back to what we've talked about on other streams, like the experiences and the past events that people have gone through. You have to kind of take that into consideration when speaking with people, because everyone has a story. Not everyone is going to see the same event or situation similar to the way that you do. And that's why we have the world that we do. Everybody has different realities that they're living in. And that's why we need to be mindful as we go through our conversations today, if we do talk about the election results and things like that, is understanding that people voted the way that they did because of their past experiences. So just being sensitive to people and being intentional with our conversations today instead of being reactive, I think is so important. Today and every day, not just today. Something else that I thought was really interesting when I read this book is, and I think this is a concept that a lot of people have heard before, is that when people go through a traumatic event, and the book talks about whether it was sexual abuse or, domestic violence or something like that, it seems like those events tend to become a pattern with that person. And the book addresses that traumatized people stay stuck in the fear that they know instead of escaping, because it becomes something that is now familiar to them and it rewires them. So people, often have the argument, I don't understand why this person would put themselves in a similar situation. That's what they know. And that is what their brain, unfortunately, is finding familiar. All right, let's see if we can start walking. Because I do want to show you guys some more of the resort. It's a little cloudy today. And like I said, doing the best I can without a gimbal. So bear with me. Oh, they did leave the dock. Oh, is it open? No, there's a sign there. Okay. Okay. Here we go. I don't think I've ever been inside there. Ever. Here you can rent some boats and bikes. Thanks, guys. I'm keeping my arm as still as I possibly can. This is a great pool area over here. If you're staying on property, it's the kind of like the quiet pool. I love hanging out there because they have some cabanas too that you don't even need to rent. It's first come, first serve. And they also have people coming around to take your food order and drink order. So it's super, super nice to hang out at that pool area. And here are some of the cabins that are a little bit pricier than an actual room, but it's so nice because you get your own little area here. And I just love like how lush this resort is. Like, look at all of this greenery. I love it. So beautiful. And it's definitely very quiet in the morning. I love this resort. It's one of my favorites. I would love to stay here. It's absolutely gorgeous. Go for a run in the morning. Look at that. These signs should like scare me, but they don't. I want to see a gator. Let's go. Maybe the snake's not my favorite, but. Good morning, Kelsey. Yeah, and I like that they have this little barbecue area. Look at this. Yeah, Captain, same with me. Cabins are definitely on the bucket list. For sure. But they have a nice little grill area. Like, look how cute. And I have like a lot of notes here for my trauma book, but I'm trying to really talk about things that I think would, kind of resonate with you guys. I want to make sure, you can kind of see the back. They're a little screened in lanai. I don't know if you could see it. I want things to kind of resonate with you, so I have so much, and I do feel like this book is extremely heavy. It is not a light read by any means, but if it's something that is interesting to you, I definitely encourage you to pick up the book. But it's taking me a little bit longer to get through than I had anticipated because it's a heavy book. And there's a lot of studies that are, written throughout the book. So, and sometimes I need to just step back because the topic itself and the experiences that some of the people went through is it's a lot. So I'm trying to kind of just like sift through my notes here and make sure I'm giving you stuff that you would find relevant or maybe connect with a little bit. But really at the end of the day, it's understanding that, and for me, this was my biggest takeaway, is when dealing with the emotions of like anger and rage, understanding that that's a secondary emotion. And I know we talked a little bit about this the last time on the stream. And that being, sorry guys, really trying to stay steady here. That's a secondary emotion. And if someone is experiencing a lot of rage or anger, you have to be intentional with how you respond to that, because in many cases, it has nothing to do with you, especially when dealing with someone who has gone through traumatic events in their life. It's knowing, okay, this has nothing to do with me. The person is reacting to something that triggered them, and being able to take a deep breath and a step back and kind of looking at the situation and understanding that this person interpreted something differently than you did. And again, anger and rage is a secondary emotion. Maybe they're feeling upset or overwhelmed or shame from whatever occurred. And it's important to understand that if someone has been through a traumatic event, it's going to change their brain. So the effects of trauma are not different and can overlap with the effects of physical lesions and strokes. So the brain is physically changing. So understand that you're dealing with someone who has their brain actually altered, okay? So having some compassion and understanding when, interacting with somebody that has trauma, that's super important. And when someone has PTSD, their body continues to defend themselves against a threat as if it's happening like in real time. They still feel like they are still in that traumatic event. So really just coming from a place of understanding is super important. I just had to lean on that railing for a little bit. Like, look at this. I feel like I'm not even in Disney. I feel like I'm walking through like the woods of Florida. Like, it's so beautiful. I love this. Yes, Captain Kirk, you were right. The world needs more compassion and understanding. Absolutely. Yep, Peaches, I'm on the same page as you. Their walking paths, the pools, just every area of Wilderness Lodge is just beautiful. And I want to go into the lobby later too and kind of walk around because it's just absolutely stunning. Lynette says, I'm trying to control my anger. Sure, it stems from my childhood, parents' divorce, and mother left. Yeah, I mean, they do talk about too, like, and they always say, like, the first step in recovery is like identifying what you're going through and acknowledging that, like, there is something that happened, right? So throughout the book, they kind of talk about how you do need to address your feelings and really understand, like, that it's okay to feel these things, but identifying the actual feeling that you have, again, anger being a secondary emotion, what triggered that? What underlying emotions are there? And once you're able to address that, then you can kind of get to the root of, okay, what triggered this and how can I address it and how can I learn from it and heal from it? And I'm not saying that reading this book will heal you from your traumas, but it will help you to better understand, maybe some of your reactions to things, your triggered responses. And, I always recommend people speaking to a therapist because I do, and it's kind of amazing. And I want to keep reminding you, I am not an expert on this topic. I am not a licensed psychologist by any means, but I'm just sharing information from this book with you. And again, I want to thank you all for being here on this beautiful Wednesday morning. Got some midweek motivation going on. Let's see if we can get... I've actually never taken this trail the whole way, so I don't know where we're going to end up. I wanted to get a really nice view of the sunrise, but it's kind of cloudy this morning. Oh, this is where it ends. Okay. Well, we tried. But I love the cabins. Like, I want to stay there. Please, one day. It's just so peaceful. It definitely doesn't feel like we're in Disney. Had a crazy morning so far because, as many of you know, I do go to the 5 a.m. camp at my gym, and we were about to start our workout and the power went out in the gym. Apparently, one of the transformers blew on, because we're right across from a golf course, and apparently it went out. So for the whole workout, we worked out in the dark. We did have the emergency lights on, but it was definitely an interesting morning, working out in the dark. But we did it. We pressed through. Another thing that I was thinking about too after the workout, because it was a little bit challenging. We had a wireless speaker. Thankfully, that was there, so we had music, because in the beginning with the warm-up, it was a little rough. But I thought about it after, like, your senses, when you remove one of your senses, it heightens the rest. So I was like, I can barely see in here. So I kind of felt like the workout was harder, because I really felt like the physical pain of it and the strain in my muscles and things like that. So I just thought it was interesting that everything else was amplified, because, you know, my senses of sight were not the best. But it was a good workout. We still did it. We pressed through. And if that's not a metaphor for life, like, you know, life throws things at you and things that you're not ready for, but you just got to push through. If it's something that you want, something that you're prioritizing, you know, got to just press through, and you come out stronger after that. Thank you, Peaches. Yeah, so I hit 250 camps for 2024 yesterday, so that was really amazing. And I think I was like the 10th person at our location to hit 250 for this year, so that was fun. Yeah, Kelsey, it was an interesting Metcon, to say the least. Kelsey says, one day I'm going to pool enough fun money together to spend at least 2 nights at the cabin. Yeah. I mean, come on now. Like, it's so beautiful here. Going back to trauma and going back to those triggered responses, they're basically reactions due to trauma. And even though they're irrational, they're out of people's control. So understanding that if it's a triggered response, if it's not just, you know, you can't just make excuses for people all the time, but if it's a triggered response to a trauma, it's out of that person's control. And their brains are kind of wired for this fight or flight response. So recognizing that when you're seeing a person in a reactive state is so important, so that you know how to proceed with yourself. What can you do to either protect yourself or to help this person through, you know, what they're experiencing in the moment? And as long as our mind is defending itself in survival mode, so going through that trauma, like your brain is adapting, our ability to imagine, play, and learn, and even pay attention to other people's needs are compromised. And as a teacher, I do see this with some of my students who have been through traumatic events, and asking them to pay attention during a grammar lesson is not exactly in their realm of possibility at the moment, especially when they're dealing with stuff at home. And if you're somebody that, you know, interacts with children and even people, you know, in a capacity of like teaching them something new, or expecting them to produce some sort of result after a traumatic event, like their brain just can't do that. So just keep that in mind. Lynette, yes, my brain doesn't always work the way I want it to. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. And at the end of the day, it's our emotions that propel us into action. So think about, this is with anything, like me getting up to go to the gym in the morning. You know, there is emotion behind that. If you are somebody that is tired after work and you don't feel like making dinner, there's an emotion behind that. So you order food or whatever the case may be. Our emotions are driving our actions But if we can gain control and understanding of the emotions and identifying what that emotion is, we can learn to maybe change some of our behaviors in that respect. Like if you're somebody that wants to go to the gym more, but you just don't do it, what is the emotion behind there? Are you embarrassed? Do you feel shame? Is your confidence level low? Like what is behind that? And once you're able to recognize and identify that, you can make changes if you want to. Something that I found really interesting in the book, and I quoted it because it's just pretty simple. Traumatized people lose their sense of purpose and direction. That really stuck with me because, again, it's going back to that being able to have an imagination, right? And imagination is linked up with your hopes and your goals. So if you are somebody who has gone through trauma and you're unable to imagine, then it's harder for you to have a sense of purpose and direction. And it doesn't mean you can't get it back. But again, it's more of that awareness of this is why I am feeling this way. Hey, Tomorrowland Traveler, good morning. And then hopefully finding a way to heal from that. Heavy topics on a Wednesday morning. Heavy topics. I was really debating, do I want to get into trauma? Because there's so many layers of it and there's so much to really address and talk about. But I just wanted to kind of give you a very cliff noted version of the things that I'm reading. So if you want to learn more about it, definitely pick up the book. And again, the title is The Body Keeps Score. And it's really, at the end of the day, addressing how your body is affected by the trauma and how it holds on to it. Let's go back to this beautiful, beautiful view. Lighten the mood a little bit. We got some people getting on a boat. Oh my God, that's so nice in the morning. I would love this. What a great way to start the day. I didn't know they did them early. I thought it was just more of like a fireworks cruise, but maybe these are the people, maybe just rented the boat. I don't know how this works, but how nice. Oh, they're going fishing? Okay. Come on with this view. Another takeaway from this book is knowing what we feel, and I kind of talked about this a little bit. Knowing what we feel is the first step to knowing why we feel that way, and we can manage those feelings. Mindfulness is the cornerstone of recovery. So just being mindful about your feelings, identifying them, is the first step in healing and recovery. And in the short that I put out this week, I talked a little bit about gut feelings and how traumatized people might not be able to actually, quote unquote, listen to your gut and go with that gut feeling. Because one of the takeaways that I read in the book is that gut feelings help us to evaluate what's going on around us. Makes sense. So traumatized people feel unsafe in their bodies. And this is just like an everyday thing because of the trauma. They have constant warning signs. and they become experts in ignoring their gut feelings, because if they didn't, they'd be on a constant state of like high alert, fight or flight. So people are unable to notice what's going on inside of them and become vulnerable to respond to any sensory shift by either shutting down or going into a panic. I found that to be so interesting, because everything that we read, I feel like says, go with your gut, or what is your gut telling you? And I don't think that's fair to people that have gone through trauma, because they apparently cannot do that, because their gut feelings might not be giving them true information. I thought that was super interesting. So normally I'm always taking notes when I read a nonfiction book, right? Because it helps me to like process what I'm reading, and I want to have my little note cards when I come to live stream and share this information with you guys. And this is the first time I have 5 cards back and front, index cards, that I'm reading from, and I'm like, oh, there's just so much here, and I have not even finished the book. So please understand that I am giving you a very abbreviated version of the information that I have kind of learned through my reading. Yes, Captain Kirk, I know, it's very enlightening. I don't know, that was something that really stood out to me, because I feel like we're always talking about the gut, right? And if you're dealing with, or if you are somebody who's gone through trauma, it's kind of hard to, go with your gut. This is another thing that makes sense, and I feel like for most of us, we kind of understand and we see trauma kind of showing up in these ways with people, but something that, again, is important to address. I feel like I have a pretty good understanding, and I tell people this too, like, I know my body very well. I know when I'm about to get sick. Like, I know the warning signs. I know the symptoms when I feel a little bit off. But really, you need to have a friendly relationship with your body and truly understand, how your body functions on a normal day without external things kind of influencing your body or swaying it one way or another. Because without that friendly relationship with your body and that knowing, you have to rely on external regulation. So that's like medication, drugs, alcohol, or constant reassurance from others, or compulsive compliance with the wishes of others. I thought that was so interesting. I mean, it makes sense, right? Like, people that have gone through trauma, yes, they might rely on medication, drugs, or alcohol. That's something that I feel like is common knowledge, something that we have all heard of before. But the fact that they talked about needing constant reassurance from other people, so that's like people pleasing, or compulsively complying with the wishes of others, always saying yes to things. People that go through trauma are not focusing on their needs because they don't know what they need, and they're constantly trying to please others and get that reassurance from other people. That was eye-opening to me. I didn't know that there was a correlation there. So I loved that. Not that I loved it, but mind blown. And also, traumatized people have trouble sensing what's going on in their bodies, and they lack a response to frustration. So when they're feeling frustrated, it changes to excessive anger, and they can't actually recall what's upsetting them. I don't know if anyone can relate or knows somebody that when they get into this heightened state of like anger or rage, and they're yelling or crying or just kind of throwing a little bit of a fit, And they don't even realize at the end, they're like, I don't even know why I'm mad anymore. I don't even know why I feel this way. That's an example of someone who has experienced trauma. They don't know how to respond to frustration. So many interesting things. All right, it's starting to rain on me now. This has been quite the morning. Working out in the dark, no gimbal, starting to rain. It's great though. We're rolling with the punches. This boat is like gunning it right now. They are moving. Lynette, that's a good point. So she says, that's interesting. I would have thought that traumatized people would shut themselves away from people. Yes, the book talks about that too, how it depends on A, the situation, and B, the person. Because some people that have experienced trauma, they do shut down and they do withdraw. But there are some people, depending on, I guess, the type of trauma too, they can lash out as well when they're put in a situation that is triggering to their past trauma. So I want to give an example without like bringing down the mood, but in the book they talk about this woman who experienced sexual abuse from someone in her family, and she years later was in a relationship with a man. And let me go under here because it is raining on me. And it said that they had a nice night together. Nothing really intimate occurred, but they fell asleep together. And when this man, his leg brushed up against her, she woke up and started like beating this guy. And nothing happened to her, but that just triggering of laying down next to somebody and his leg brushing up against her, she didn't realize the trauma that she had and how that affected her, that she just started beating the guy. So it could be an excessive anger or rage that comes from the slightest, I guess, stimulus. But I found that to be interesting too, like where the rage comes out of nowhere. It's kind of like an irrational rage that she didn't realize was even pent up inside of her. Also, traumatized people respond to slight changes in facial expressions as they are more hyper alert to the slightest features of anger. So they can detect when somebody is, not in a good mood, or like I wear my emotions on my sleeve. I think it's pretty apparent just by looking at me. You don't know how I'm feeling. But I also have RBF, so don't take anything personal. But people with trauma can identify when someone has the slightest change in their facial expressions because they themselves are very defensive and scared because of the trauma that they have encountered. Whoa, we got a frog. He was blending in. Super cool. Whoa. I love frogs. And going back to your emotions, your change begins when we own our emotional brain and we learn to observe and tolerate our feelings and strong emotions. So own it and understand why we're feeling the way that we're feeling. I also thought it was interesting that traumatic memory differs from normal recall. That, I think, is also something that many people identify with trauma is that, like, if you're going through a traumatic event, you might not remember everything that occurred in the most accurate way. Your brain is trying to adapt to the situation, so it's trying to protect you, so you might not remember everything exactly the way that it occurred. And again, another lesson or takeaway that I took away from this book: in order to have an identity, we must know what is real and what was real. We must trust our memories and our realities. By losing this ability, it's called soul murder. It erases our awareness and cultivates denial, but it's essential to survival. So that denial is actually helping the person to survive and press on. But in that process, you lose track of who you are, what you're feeling, and of what or whom you can trust. So interesting. Lynette says, I have gotten over pushing people away. Did that because my mother left. My mind was saying, leave them before they leave you. Yes, that is a very common feeling and response to that. And that makes so much sense. Thank you for sharing that, Lynette. But it's something that you have to work through, right? And having that awareness of the situation, you can kind of catch yourself before repeating that pattern. And that was your body and your mind's way of protecting yourself and not wanting to go through that trauma again. So when you think about it in those terms, that makes sense. But if you just looked at the situation of Lynette pushing people away or cutting ties, you would say, oh, that's irrational. Why would she do something like that? But understanding where you came from and your experiences make it valid, if that makes sense. All right, let's see if I can walk through here. It is raining just a little bit. This is my favorite bar on property. For those that care to know, it's my favorite because you can sit at this beautiful outdoor bar, still be covered. Usually we have little ducks that walk through here, and you have this amazing view. Like, what is better than this? Please tell me. And the food is ridiculously good. So this is Geyser Point, one of my faves. And you can watch, I don't know if it's happening now or when they turn it on, but there's a geyser that goes off. I think it's at least once an hour, and it's right there, and you can watch it while you're eating and drinking from this beautiful view. Something else that I found super fascinating, depending on the type of therapy or the type of therapist or person that you're talking to, the diagnosis that you receive, if at all, any of them, could be just a symptom of PTSD. In the book, they talk about how PTSD leads to a diagnosis of other disorders if trauma is not identified. So you might actually have PTSD, but you've been diagnosed with bipolar disorder or ADHD or borderline personality disorder. But if your therapist or whoever you're speaking with doesn't know that you have this trauma, you might receive a different diagnosis. I thought that was super interesting too, because we all put ourselves in these boxes of like, I have OCD or I am bipolar or whatever the case may be, but that is not your identity. And it's so important to really understand that these labels really don't mean anything. And we have to kind of look at, well, what are the symptoms and how can I heal from it? Don't just say, oh, this is the way I am, so nothing will change. No, we can work towards healing. And a diagnosis is not a death sentence. Hey, Eric, thanks for being here. All right, it is raining just a little bit. Hey, Mark, good morning. So I'm gonna walk towards the inside so I can show you the beautiful lobby as well. And, you know, we did a little tour of the outside and the cabins. That's right, Lynette, you're never too old to change. Love that. Every day is a new day. I was talking to someone at the gym the other day, and she was telling me, like, you're so inspiring. I wish I could do the things that you do, but you know what? Next year, I'm really gonna start out strong. And I said, why are you waiting until next year? Tomorrow's a new day, let's go. Stop making excuses. We don't need another year. We don't need another Monday. Start today, right? You can change at any age. And she's like, I love that. No worries, Lady Kirk. Thanks for being here. Thank you, Captain Kirk. No worries. Thanks for hanging out. Yeah, I'm gonna go inside now because it's starting to really rain. But I took a picture right here earlier because I'm like, love this resort. We got the waterfall. Come on. What a sight. It's so beautiful. All right, let's go inside. All right, let's make sure we don't slip here. I appreciate all of you for joining me this morning for a nice midweek motivation stream. If you haven't already hit that like button, please do. And consider subscribing as well. We got the Territory Lounge here. Another fun little hangout. Whispering Canyon. Has anyone eaten there before? It's pretty good. I've been there a few times. And the magnificent lobby. We got the fireplace. I can't wait for them to decorate for Christmas because they're gonna have this huge tree in the middle of the lobby that I love to see. Where are we going? Let me find, maybe we'll sit over here. Sit over here in this cozy little area. So cozy. Oh boy, all right. But I want to thank you all for joining me today. Sorry about missing Monday's stream, but like I said, I did have to switch my shifts at the gym, and I worked on Monday, so I could not complete a stream with you guys. But here we are for a little midweek motivation. Again, I didn't realize that would be right after or the morning after the election. And like I said earlier, regardless of how you voted or the outcome of the election. Remember, it's all about how we respond, right? You have personal responsibility to yourself. What type of person do you want to be? We don't need a president to define who we are at the end of the day, regardless of the party that you feel you're affiliated with. That's not what defines you. We talked a lot about that on previous streams too. You are not a label. You're so much more than that. And it's so important to be intentional with our actions and intentional with our speech, right? And just remember that everybody is going through something. And when we move forward with our conversations today and every day, just keep that in the back of your mind that we're just responding to our past experiences. You might not know that somebody in your family, your friend group, your coworker has trauma. And just being mindful of maybe how anger and rage is a secondary emotion, and whatever that person is going through, let's try and give them some compassion and understand that maybe they can't control that response or that reaction. So keeping that in the back of your mind, I think, is so important. And I'm not a perfect person. I have to remind myself of that as well. But again, it's all about intention. And that was my word of 2024 is intention. I'm excited to do another live stream. I'm thinking maybe after Thanksgiving about the book that I read every single year, which is called One Word. And you pick a word for the year that basically defines how you are going to move forward through the year. Hey, Liam, welcome. And I want to do a live stream about that. Hello. So we can kind of brainstorm together what could be your one word for 2025. And again, I find that to be so much more powerful than a New Year's resolution that you might kind of fall off after February or March. If you keep that one word in your mind for the entire year, it's something that will help you to improve every single day. And again, we're in November, and I know my one word. I know why I chose my one word, and every single day I think about that. And how many times can you say that you thought about your New Year's resolution every single day? So that's a great stream that I'm really looking forward to. So stick around for that. If you haven't already subscribed, please do hit the bell, turn on all notifications so you'll be notified when I come out with that stream. I am also going to be streaming on Monday, which is Veterans Day. So thank you to all the veterans out there. I am going to do a live stream on Monday, so make sure you're subscribed and look out for that. I don't know where we will be, but we will be streaming. Let's turn this back around and have a better view of the lobby here. And if you just tuned in, today we really focused on the topic of trauma and the book that I have been reading throughout my journey of 75 Hard. It's one that is a little bit heavier than other books that I've been reading. It's called The Body Keeps Score by Bessel van der Kolk. All right, so if you're interested in hearing more about the topic of trauma and how it affects your whole body, definitely, go to Amazon, purchase that book. But just know going in that it's not an easy read. It's not something that you can fly through in a few days. But there is so much that you can learn from this book. I'm only 150-ish pages in, and I filled up 5 index cards back in front of notes that I took away so far. So it is a really great book if you want to learn more about the topic of trauma, whether you've experienced trauma or somebody in your life has experienced trauma. It's a great guide to getting a deeper understanding of what trauma is and how it affects people. on a cellular level that I never really realized. So you can check that out if you want. But here we are from Disney's Wilderness Lodge. It is so beautiful. But now I'm gonna walk out into the rain. I want to thank you so much for joining me. And like I said, if you are interested in seeing more positivity and motivation throughout the week, consider subscribing, hit that like button, and maybe even become a Patreon. I want to thank my Patreons for being here and supporting me for another month. I appreciate you. If you're interested in that, you can go to patreon.com/learningwithlaw, or you can check out, I believe I linked it down below. But thank you so much for being here, guys, on Wednesday. Oh, I feel like that's my exit music in the background. But thank you for being here. You're all amazing. And again, be intentional today with your speech. Know that everybody has a story. And yeah, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. And I will see you on Monday, bright and early. Have a wonderful day. Thanks, Mark. See you soon.